So I know I just did a video not too long ago about more of my bike fit myths, but I wanted to spend an entire video on one, and we're going to talk today about the myth of women's specific bikes. So women's specific bikes have been around for many years. And, on the surface, it feels like that this is something that makes sense to do. After all, women have their specific things in other areas like clothes or shoes. So why wouldn't women need their own bikes? And on the surface, this could be a compelling argument. The problem lies in the fact that the manufacturers who build these bikes would have you believe that they re-engineered the entire bike just to fit a female rider, when in fact, the entire bike, including all the components, are nearly identical to the quote-unquote men's bike. And that the only change that was really made was they built the bike with, purple or pink accents to it, or, different color handlebar tape or saddles. And occasionally you might even get one that, maybe they did put a narrower handlebar on the bike, than the men's version. The most telling thing is that the frames are almost identical to the men's. Now, on the surface, it doesn't look like it, but when you actually dig through the geometry, you'll notice that many manufacturers will take, for instance, the men's small, and that geometry becomes the women's medium. And then, therefore, the men's medium becomes the women's large, and on and on. Now, they may put an extra small size on the small end for the women, which is great, but really the geometry is often identical. And in the cases where it's not identical, it's not different enough to really make a huge difference in most cases. For instance, like Specialized or Trek, you look at some of their women's bikes, and if you look at them compared to some of the men's bikes, you'll notice that their top tubes are a little bit smaller, and I'm literally talking like maybe 2 millimeters smaller. And the head tubes are a little bit longer, and also just a couple of millimeters longer. So you have a little more relaxed and upright position. To say that this is a women's bike because it has this geometry is kind of silly. So that brings me to the critical point of this video, and that's that men and women, the vast majority of the time, will fit the same size bikes. Some men will need smaller bikes with more upright positions, and some women will need slightly larger bikes with longer positions at times. There are many instances where I've found where there has been, a quote-unquote women's-specific geometry bike, when in fact I have a male client who would fit that perfectly. In fact, it might be ideal for an ideal geometry for him. And are women going to gravitate towards the smaller size bikes since they are generally shorter on average? And yeah, but there's really nothing to show that within size match comparisons that men and women will, with any generalization, be able, have to fit different bikes. Because if men and women do need different size frames, then why would they be making the bikes with exactly the same geometry, or not very different at all? Now, recently I had a viewer ask me, is it normal for men to ride, or what do I think about men riding women's saddles? And actually, that's funny, when he asked me this, it happened twice that very week. I have a lot of clients who are male that actually ride better on female saddles. Even when we get down to the, some of the more core elements of the components of the bike, like the saddle, it's still not necessarily gender specific. So I would put this issue one very simple way. And it's that men and women in equal measure will need geometry that is more relaxed, or they will need geometry that is more race focused. Now, I don't take any issue with the manufacturer just trying to build a bike that appeals to the aesthetic, that, from an aesthetic standpoint to women. But I do take issue when they say that they're tuning the entire build of the bike to a woman's needs and body dimensions. So to sum up, women's specific bikes, definitely a myth, and you only have to look as far as the geometry charts, where the women's geometry, you'll be able to find something either identical to it or so close as to not even matter in a men's bike. I'd love to know your thoughts about this. What are your experiences with women's specific bikes? Ladies out there, have you struggled to find a bike that fits even among the women's specific bikes? That'd be kind of an interesting topic to explore further too. Check out some of my other videos and, yeah, subscribe if you haven't. Thanks.